Okay, now in chapter 7, we start talking about arrays. An array is a object that can hold multiple values of the same data type simultaneously. So let's think about this. If I wanted to keep track of every student in my class test score, I would say I have 30 students, I would have to have 30 different variables for each student. Student 1, what their test score is. Student 2, what their test score is. Student 3. So I'd have to declare, and let's say they're integers, 30 different integers and 30 different variable names to keep track of 30 different test scores. Now what if I wanted to do that all semester and say we had 10 tests? I'd have 30 times 10 or 300 variables I'd have to set up, and 300 variables I'd have to declare, 300 variables I'd have to initialize just to get all the test scores. Well, there's a better way of doing that, and that's with arrays. So let me pull up the arrays. And since primitive variables are designed to only hold one value at a time, I can use an array to create a collection of like variables that are indexed. I could have a scores array, and score sub indexed 1 could be for student 1. And say score 2 can be for student 2. And I'd only have to declare one object array to keep track of all the scores. So an array can store any type of data, but only one type of data, meaning that only integers or only doubles or only strings. That's all it can store, is whatever you set it to, and only that type of data. So it's a list of data elements. And creating and using an array in Java is similar to creating and using any other type of object. You declare a reference variable, such as numbers here, and you use the keyword new to create the array. And here we say, right here, integer, and this means it's an array. The two brackets mean it's an array. Integer, brackets, numbers, means that numbers is going to be an array of integers. And the last half is equals new integer 6. That means I'm going to have 6 integers that this array can hold. Once I set the value, like say to 6, it cannot be changed. So once I set it, it cannot be changed. So in this case, integer brackets numbers equals new integer 6 means basically I have indexed from 0 to 5. It's always 1 less than the number I set it to, 0, because we start at 0. Being programmers, we always start at 0. 0 to 5, and whatever I put in these values will be stored as part of the numbers array. So array element values are initialized to 0, and they always start at 0. So here's basically the way you normally declare an array. You can do it in a two-step process like they show. Let me get this slide back. In this slide, I can do it here and then later on do this, or I can do it all in one step. Integer brackets numbers equal new integer, and 6. It could be 6, it could be 100, it could be whatever you want. And it can be of any type. So here, we have one called temperature, and it's going to be floats, and it's going to have 100 different elements. Or letters, and they can be characters. There's going to be 41 going from 0 to 40. This one will go from 0 to 99. Long, units, and this is going to go from 0 to 49. Or sizes, which are going to be doubles. And this is going to go from 0 to 1,199. I can set it to whatever I want, but once I set it, it's fixed. I can never change it again. So the array size is a non-negative number, and it can be a literal, like 6 or 5 or whatever. It can be a constant, or it can be a variable. So here we showed it as being literals. Here we set a constant to 6, and we just say this, and that's basically set to 6. So again, once created, array size is fixed and cannot be changed. So how do I access an array? By the reference name and the subscript. For example, numbers subscript 0 equals 20. They say numbers sub 0. I always say subscript. So numbers subscript 0 equals 20. That means the first space in numbers is going to be set to 20. Now remember, numbers is going to be a reference. It's going to reference the start of the array. So the start of the array, 0 being the first element, is going to be set to 20. Array elements can be treated like any other variable. If I just use this 0, I can treat it as any other variable, just the same way I would treat any other variable. I can add to it, I can multiply it, I can pass it in a call to a method. The only difference is they're referenced by the array name and a subscript. So let's look at kind of using arrays. In this first program here, this is demo, let's go to array demo 1. Basically, we're going to set an array called hours. And they're going to be, it's going to be an array of integers. And it's going to be set to how many employees I have. Well, I have 3 employees. So this is going to be set to 3. So I'm going to array that goes from 0, 1, 2. Subscript 0, 1, 2. And I'll have a scanner to read in my keyboard. And I'll say enter the hours worked by 3 employees. Employee 1, I'll get the number of hours and I'll set it into array subscript 0. Employee 2, I'll get the number of hours and set it into array hours subscript 1. And then employee 3, I'll get the number of hours and I'll set it into array hours subscript 2. Once I set these, I can then print them all out. Hours 0, hours 1, hours 2. So let's just run it. And just to keep it easy, I'm just going to, 1, they're going to work 10 hours. 2, they're going to work 20 hours. And 3, they're going to work 30 hours. The hours you entered are 10, 20, 30. So that's just an array. Again, all I need is the array name, which is a reference to where the array starts, and a subscript. Now, just looking at array demo 2, this is the same program, but in this case, I'm going to put it in a loop. So for index equals 0 to index less than the number of employees, which is 3, employee, and since index starts at 0, it's going to say employee 1. It's going to, again, ask for the number of hours. And this is going to set hours 0 to whatever I put in. Then I'm going to increment the index to 1. 1 is still less than 3. Print employee, 1 plus 1, 2. And so for hours 1, I'll get the number of hours from the keyboard. I'll increment to 2. 2 is still less than 3. So employee, 2 plus 1, 3. I'll get the number of hours, and I'll put it in hours subscript 2. Increment to 3. 3 is no longer less than 3, so we skip out of that. And then the hours you entered are, and I'll go through another loop. Index 0. Index is set to 0, so 0 is less than 3. Print out hours 0. Increment it by 1. 1 is less than 3. Input or print out hours 1. Increment it to 2. 2 is less than 3. Print out hours 2. Increment it's 3. 3 is not less than 3, so it will leave. So let's run this one. Okay, so this time I'll make it 100, 200, 300. Hours entered is 100, 200, 300. So as you can see, I can use an element of the array just like I use any other variable. Here I used it, let's see, right here, hours 0 to get it in. Here I use it just to print it out. So it's very similar to any type of variable we have. So let me just close it down. Bring this back up. So remember, array indexes always start at 0 and continue to the array length -1. So in that example they're showing, the array's value, it's going to be of integers. And interestingly enough, this is wrong. Let me modify this. There we go. Equals new int 10. That would have an array indexes of subscript 0 through 9. Not 0 through 10, not 1 through 10, 0 through 9. And if you try to use a 10th one and say values 10, you would get an invalid subscript and it would give you an error when you ran it, not beforehand. You can also initialize the arrays. I could do int days and set days like this, and what this would do is days 0 is 31, days 1 is 28, days 2 is 31, so on and so forth. And this not only initialized the array, it told me how big the array is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 elements in this array going from 0 to 11. So this set the size of the array. So, what else? We can do multiple arrays on the same line. These are 3 arrays of integers. So these are 3 arrays, numbers, codes, and scores, and they're all integer arrays. If I move I could move the brackets to the other side, but typically it goes this way: integer, brackets, numbers. This will work, but it's not the typical way of doing it. If you did this integer, numbers, codes, this would do is make numbers and codes an array, but not scores. Scores would just be an integer. So, basically what we're showing here is processing data in an array is the same as any other variable. So if I took hours, 3 times pay rate, yeah, I can do that and get the gross pay. So that would be the hours saved possibly for the 3rd employee, whatever their pay rate is, I'd multiply that to get the gross pay. So you can, like I said, work with array elements just like you would any other variable. Again, if you have questions on arrays, email me or put it in the discussion board. And thanks for watching.